The first day of the Giants' two-day mandatory veteran minicamp is in the books. Who performed well? Who's got to show some more tomorrow? Let's talk about it next on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Dottino. Welcome back to the Big Blue Breakdown Live here on the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and media network. So glad you could join us tonight for our special Tuesday night edition of the program. For those of you who are regulars, you know we're usually here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with the program. You could always get involved in the show by going over to the chat, as you see on the right-hand side of your screen. I suppose you have that up. I don't know, but I suppose that you do. Or, of course, you can contact me through this link at the bottom, this StreamYard link. You can do an audio call if you like, or if you want to activate your camera, you can also do a video call. That's what I think separates this show from most of these types of shows that you'll see on the internet. I do want to get you guys involved in the process, and I'd love to talk to you and love to see you. You don't just have to type it out on a computer if you don't want to. All right, so what are we going to do tonight? I don't know. We'll be here for an hour, hour and a half. We'll see how it goes, because tomorrow, got to get up early tomorrow, get down to the Giants complex for day 2 of the 2-day minicamp. Now, so you guys understand exactly what's going on with this. These are still non-contact practices. Players are in shells, which means shoulder pads, top jerseys, helmets, and then usually just a short cut-off uniformed pants. They're not in full gear, more like 2/3 gear, if you will. And again, no contact allowed. So this is really just an extension of the OTAs, or what's known as the off-season team activities. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, it means doing more 11-on-11 drills, game situations, and real snaps, run-through plays, if you will. Like, for example, today, the Giants had 4 full sessions of team drills. 7-on-7s was one of them. All of the others were 11-on-11s. So even though there's no contact, you're still running through the plays in a very realistic manner. And what I try to tell people is every coach wants 3 things from their players. They want assignment, alignment. Actually, it's alignment, assignment in that order. Alignment, assignment, and execution. Now, you can break down number 3, execution, into technique if you want and separate that and make it 4 items. But a lot of coaches will just say 3 items because technique is part of the execution. What we're seeing here is how do the players do with their assignments and the alignments. The execution part, what can you tell about execution? Well, you could tell the passes. Are the passes being thrown correctly? Are the routes being run correctly? Are the defensive backs recognizing the routes and staying with the receivers? Are they, when they get to the ball, are they knocking it down and or making an interception? And are the skill position players on offense catching the ball, or are they dropping it when it's thrown to them? That's the execution part. And that's all you can tell from these spring drills, these OTAs, and this mini camp. Once the players actually get to real training camp and they're allowed to start hitting, now you can actually run real plays with contact and find out how the offensive linemen and the defensive linemen are faring, how the linebackers are doing when they're coming on the pass rush or trying to fill a hole against a running back, and how the defensive backs might be doing with some contact against the wide receivers, and at least maybe showing some press coverage and jamming those guys and trying to give them a difficult time in their releases. That's why when I talk about these practices, I always say take it with a wheelbarrow full of salt, not just uh, a spoon of salt. No, not just a speck of salt. Take them with a wheelbarrow of salt. That's what you have to do when you talk about these kinds of practices and these kinds of drills. Now, having said all of that, the Giants were inside today. They had to be inside because of inclement weather. We did have inclement weather in New Jersey. Early on, there was a little bit of rain and then a mist, and they don't want to get guys hurt, so they're not going to put them out there on the slick field. They're certainly not going to do that. So they decided, all right, we're going to go inside to the field house. Now, here's what I will tell you. When they go into the field house, you have 90 players on a 100-yard football field. And even when they're doing team drills, there's a lot of team personnel standing between you and the drills. You get screened out. There's just a lot of bodies all over the place. You don't always see exactly what you want to see. Especially sometimes we don't get free roam around the 100-yard field when we're watching one of these practices. See, I'm going to take you guys inside the bubble. I'm going to tell you what other people won't. The field's 100 yards, right? And the viewing area is behind one end zone, or in the corner of the end zone a little bit, if you will. It's all the way down at the other end of the field sometimes, like today's practice, where the Giants ran a lot of 11-on-11s in the red zone, or at least inside the 30-yard line. Well, it's a lot harder to see some of those things, especially when there's team personnel behind the offense watching themselves. You've got to be able to see through them as well as looking down 100 yards downfield and then watch the plays. So that's why you got to be very careful about even some of the observations that you will hear from people who attend these practices, because we don't always have a great viewpoint. Now, having said that, practice was inside today. I don't know if it's going to be inside tomorrow. Hopefully they'll be outside. I believe they're only on tap for a 1-hour practice tomorrow. Then all of the players and coaches get to be off for their summer break. We will take off for our summer break here on the Big Blue Breakdown and then be back. I believe tentatively the Giants are scheduled to report for training camp and get things going the 4th week of July. Coach Dable said today they still have some things to tighten down on, and they don't have their actual training camp schedule quite prepared yet. But I believe it's going to wind up being the 4th week of July when the team will wind up reconvening as a whole. Remember, rookies come in usually a week earlier as they come back and continue their indoctrination. And then the full team has to be in at a given date, and I believe that will be the 4th week of July. Okay, so that's where we stand, just setting the table for you. And by the way, we'll be back tomorrow night. Yes, Wednesday night, our regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, with another edition of the Big Blue Breakdown Live. And we'll do another hour or so, and we will wrap up the 2-day minicamp and send everybody off for the summer. As the players and coaches take off, we will too. I'm kind of contemplating a special guest tomorrow night, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm contemplating it. I'm just not so sure. It depends on how you guys react to tonight's show and what you want to talk about and what you want to know about the practice session. If we got enough of communication going, we get some phone calls, we get some video calls, perhaps we'll just do that tomorrow and we'll eschew the guest. We'll see. I'm not going to tell you who it is because, again, I'm not sure if we're going to have him here, and I don't necessarily want to promise you somebody if we decide that you guys would rather talk about the team instead. All right, let's talk all about what happened today at practice. If you were on my Twitter page, at GiantsWFAN, I did put a couple of videos up of the linebackers on a pass rush drill off the edge and the defensive line working against the multi-pad sled getting off at the line of scrimmage. I put up a couple of those videos today. We're only allowed to take videos during certain portions of practice. And quite honestly, there are the times when there's not very much going on. But I do sometimes like to post those just because you fellas and you ladies out there would like to have eyes, right? You'd like to have eyes at the facility. You'd like to see, not just hear about or read about some of the stuff that's going on. So I try to give you a little bit of a flavor sometimes, although I'm really more concerned about writing notes down because I'd like to give you information more than just a 15-second video. All right, so here we go. Let's give you a recap of practice today. And once we go through that, and let me just check here for 1 second. I got a whole bunch of chats coming in. John Soul says, training camp always tells the truth, and you are 100% right, Ja, especially in joint practices, as he also says. And there's no doubt. And we do know the Giants will have one set of joint practices this year. There'll be a home and home with the New York Jets the week of the Jets preseason game. That game is Saturday, August 16th. So I believe the week prior to that game, you'll have a set of practices at Florham Park and a set of practices at East Rutherford. I don't necessarily know how they're going to work that in terms of the public's availability to see it. Are they going to be ticket holders, season ticket holders, drawn out of a hat? I have no idea. Once that is released, we'll certainly pass that information along to you because I'm sure there's a lot of people who would like to get to go see those practices. Excuse me, James O'Keefe says, Paulie Dott's one of the hardest working people in the NFL. Well, I appreciate that, James. It's a labor of love. I love what I do. And again, I would talk Giants 26 hours out of the day if people would let me, but nobody will let me talk that long because I give them a headache. Mark B says pads shows the real thing. Yeah. No, I know, Mark B. You're right. And Mark B also wanting to know, when does training camp tickets be available to the public? Well, they can't do anything about that until the coach solidifies exactly what his training camp schedule is going to be. Brian Daboll told us today they got a few minor details to still clean up. They got to run this stuff by the trainers. They run it by the general manager. They run it by the NFL, of course, too, because remember, with the CBA and the labor laws involving the players, everything's got to be exactly spelled out. We're not going to do this, we're not going to do that, but we are going to do this. We're going to do this on a certain day, only for a certain amount of time, blah, blah, blah. Everything's very detailed. So that's why we don't have it yet. For some reason, usually we have it by now, but Brian Daboll's still trying to button down a few details with his training camp schedule. Oh, by the way, James O'Keefe, again, one of our regulars, says, Paul, do you have any concerns over Malik Neighbors' lingering toe issues, or do you think the time off will be sufficient? I'm guessing they are going to slow in training camp with him. James, Brian Daboll has said repeatedly that he does not seem overly concerned by any of the guys rehabbing from last season's injuries. But then when people push him further and demand to hear of their schedules and of, are they going to be ready for training camp? Are they going to be ready for preseason? Are they going to be ready for opening day? He simply says, well, we'll see, and they're on schedule and they're rehabbing well. In other words, he does not answer them. I understand he doesn't want to be pinned down to any type of answer. But if you listen to him carefully enough, over the course of the last couple of weeks, he has once or twice literally said he's not worried about any long-term injuries with any of these players. To me, that's the only answer that counts. And so, no, I'm not particularly worried about Malik Neighbors. He suffered a toe injury during the season last year. He did, despite the toe injury, and he had it going into the final game of the season, he did wind up getting named to the Pro Bowl. He was elevated after being an alternate. He did wind up going to the Pro Bowl, which is now, of course, nothing more than a skills competition. And despite the toe, he went. He did not opt out because of injury, which tells you that, neither he nor the team felt it was overly serious. Well, whatever it was, a bruise, a sprain, a stubbing jamming of it, whatever it was, they've decided during the spring that it wasn't necessary for him to push it. And look, I don't know. It's now 6 months in to the calendar year, which means it's been 5 months since the season was over. As you know, it ended in January. I don't know exactly what it was with the toe. I believe he jammed it. I will say this. He's out there. He's out there in gear with his cleats on. He comes out to the field. He goes over with the trainers, does a little bit with them. He goes into the huddle when they do the team portion of the drills, when they do the 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s. He goes into the huddle with the quarterback and his teammates, listens in for the play, then takes a step back as they break the huddle and come up to the line of scrimmage, and he steps back to where the coaches are lined up and watches the play from the backside of the quarterback. So he is staying engaged and he is staying involved. If he was seriously hurt, I don't think they would let him out on the field. Certainly not wearing cleats and not letting him walk around and doing what he's doing. If there was serious concern about his foot, my assumption would be, based on past experience with players who have had foot injuries and or ankle or toe injuries, they'll put them on crutches, or they'll immobilize them, or they'll put them in a boot. They will not let them wear cleats and walk out onto the field. So I'm simply putting 2 and 2 together, telling you that equals 4, and I don't believe there is really anything to worry about. Now, I will also tell you there was quite a conversation today between the newspaper writers and Carmen Brasillo, the Giants' offensive line coach. He was being pestered a little bit about Andrew Thomas. Now, as we know, Andrew Thomas has had a foot injury. He's been hurt a lot during his early Giants career. And they asked him about him. Well, at one point during his media availability, Carmen Brasillo said no, he was not worried about it being a long-term injury. Then when he was pestered about it some more, he said, you're going to have to ask Coach Dable about it. So, if you listen carefully enough, you're not getting any flares shot up into the sky that are telling you to be alarmed or to be worried about these guys. Those flares are not going up. So I would say, in answer to the question in a very general sense, not just neighbors, but all of the Giants players who have had to take some time to rehab from last season's injuries, I would say, once again, I don't get the sense that any of them are significant. I do believe that maybe some of them will be ramped up when training camp starts near the end of July. They may not practice in every single practice. I mean, for example, Dexter Lawrence and the practices that have been open to the media. They've seen him do some drills. He's in full gear, right? He does the gear like everybody else does. He's in complete minicamp gear. And he'll go through half of the drills and half of the reps, and then that's it. He's done for the day. Dexter Lawrence, as you know, had the elbow injury that cost him part of the season at the end of last year. And, he has, I guess he's earned the right, okay, I suppose he's earned the right that they will give him, as they call, load management days in the NFL today. Boy, I remember when Parcells had to give some load management days to Mark Bavaro, who had a seriously injured knee. In fact, it was a career-threatening knee injury. And when he came back from it, the doctors told Coach Parcells, they said, Bill, he can't practice much during the week. He can do some walkthrough stuff, but, he's only got so many snaps left in that knee. And so Coach Parcells would have to give Mark Bavaro off most of the week and just do a few walkthrough plays with him, and then he would play on Sunday. I mean, it was something Coach Parcells had to accept, and that was the first time that I had ever come across a player getting load management. It's now being called that. That's today's modern term, load management. When a veteran player gets things a little bit easier than maybe some of the rest of his teammates because they cut back on his workload some. So yes, Dexter Lawrence is getting some load management based on the open practices that the media has been able to attend. So, James, I hope that answers your question. I tried to be as complete and as full as possible. Mark B. asking what happened to Hyatt today, injury related. Well, I know there were some people who were observing practice today who thought that he had a serious injury because midway through the session, he went over to the side. I think some of those people also said he left practice, but he did not. As a matter of fact, he was over on the side and was standing with some of the other with some of the other team personnel, and did not leave, and did not have any what's the word I'm looking for? Any significant time or consultation with the trainers. So I can't speak to what people thought they saw, but I do know the facts. And the facts are Jalen Hyatt did not actually leave the practice field, and he did not draw any attention from the trainers. Now, I'm going to ask you folks to be logical once again. If Jalen Hyatt was hurt, don't you think the trainers would have spent significant time with him? If he was hurt seriously, don't you think they would have taken him away from the practice field and inside to take care of some treatment or whatever it was that he needed? Sometimes these things are really common sense. You don't have to know what's going on to know what is not going on. Thank you for the question, Mark B. Josh Saul says, I miss the Pro Bowls when players cared. Yeah, I know. Believe me, I understand that. Remember 1985? Do you remember 85? When Phil Simms quarterbacked the NFC and was the Pro Bowl MVP? Remember several years later when Victor Cruz set a Pro Bowl record? He had double-digit catches during the course of the game. Yeah, that was good old days, right? I hear you, Joe. Hey, Tudo! Oh, my goodness. Tudo is back. And once again, as we always do, I always have to type out a thank you to Tudo because this guy, look at this. It's not even, it's not even our regular day. And here is Tudo, and here he is, still becoming a super chat listener. How cool is that? Always. So what is Tudo telling us here? Let's see. He says, greetings from me and my 4 sons here in Princeton, Jersey. Be here just for a weekend. Weekend? Or for a week? For a week. Wow. How about that? Well, I hope you guys are having a great time. I'm sorry for a bit of the cloudy weather. Tudo, here in the New York metropolitan area, I believe I just saw on the news last night that since March, we have only had one completely dry weekend. That's it. And it's already June 17th. Yeah. The good news is, if you look around, Tudo, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of greenery down there by Princeton, the grass is green, and it's growing really well. My front lawn looks great. My backyard, I got some brown spots, but my front lawn looks great. The problem is you got to mow it all the time. I mean, even more frequently than you used to, because there's been so much rain, drizzle, and misting, and then real rain, and then bouts of heavy rain, and then cool weather. Like today, temperature in the 60s. All of that stuff really is great for the grass, but, you know, when you got to get to those shores in between doing your job, it's not maybe as fun as you'd like it to be. But Tudo, always good to hear from you. So much enjoy your comments all the time when you come in on the program. And again, we appreciate your generosity as always. And Christine also. Oh wow, Christine says excellent info and excellent to you, Christine, for always sticking with us. And thank you for your generosity. She's one of our regulars, folks. If you're not one of our regulars, Christine is definitely one of our regulars here on the program, and we certainly appreciate her loyalty. All right, so let's see here, because I want to try to get to your chat. I mean, I want to get to what happened in practice today, but you guys already have asked me so many really good questions. We're almost a half hour into the program, and so we'll have time to get to the rest of this, but I don't want to ignore your questions and your comments, because I know not everybody's going to listen for more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes at a time. And I remember when we first started doing this show last July and last August, I guess, you know, there were times it would take me an hour to get to the questions in the chat room because there were so many that were rapid fire, and I'm sure a lot of those people never got a chance to hear the answers. Mark B says, good point about neighbor's toe, Paul. Well, I'm just telling you, I witnessed what I'm seeing. Mark, again, it doesn't take a doctor to see something and logically understand what it is that you're seeing. Of course, it helps when you've been around the game a long time and you have experience and you know what to look for and you know what not to look for and you know what looks bad. That does help. But a lot of this is just common sense. And sometimes people don't have that and they jump to conclusions. Okay, let's see. What do we have here? All right, that's it for the chats for now. Okay. All right, so now that we caught up on the chats, I can finally get to what happened at practice today. Now, remember, okay, I say this all the time. I'm going to make this very brief. The goal when you're watching OTAs or minicamp is to see things that appear to be normal. There is more to be told when things go wrong. That's much more significant than when things go right, because things are supposed to go right. You know, I've talked to Phil Simms about this many times. If things aren't going right during OTAs and minicamp, that's a bad sign. If things go right, it just means par for the course. If you'd like to use a golf term, you're shooting par for the course. That's fine. You like that. You want that. It doesn't mean you're going to win. It doesn't mean things are going to be great in September. But if you're shooting par for the course, that's okay, and there's no reason to be alarmed. Well, I've been telling you folks this, and everybody else who will listen, that the Giants all spring, this entire offseason program, they've been par for the course. There's been very little that has set off flares, alarms, or red flashing strobe lights. So far, everybody seems to be exactly as advertised. And that means par for the course. Holy smokes. I just got another super chat from Tudo. This one is in yellow. He says, Paulie, I was born in Italy and grew up in Princeton, Jersey. Grew up a diehard Giants fan and a big fan of yours. Well, thank you so much, Tudo. Grad from Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights. And Coach Schiano. Got a rugby career breaking men for living, mate. Well, believe me, I have no doubt that in rugby, you got to be tough and you got to be broken in to handle that sport. There is no question about that. I would not for 1 second doubt the veracity of that statement, Tudo. But glad to know that you have Jersey roots. I think that may be the first time, okay, I mean, even though born in Italy but grew up in Princeton, I think that's the first time that you have expressed to us that you did have some Jersey roots. So great to hear. And again, thank you, Tudo. And thank you for your loyalty. I appreciate those folks who have been with me. I'm entering my 43rd consecutive season of covering the New York Giants for obviously a number of different organizations over the years, but it's going to be 43 years in a row now coming up as we open training camp in July. And for those of you who have been around and listening for that long, I am very grateful because it's because of you fans that I have a job and a conduit between what happens on the field and in the locker room and you folks out there who are interested in this football team. So again, thank you. And for those of you who are just jumping on board in the last several years, that's okay too. Hopefully I'm around another 43 years and I can go 86 years covering this team. That may be a little bit of a stretch, but believe you me, if I could, I would. All right, let's go back and see if we had anybody else here on the... Oh, yes, I do have one here. Albert 007. Albert, you hit me up a few minutes ago, and I missed it, and I'm glad to get to you. Would you bring in Gabe Davis or a veteran lineman during camp? Did you mean offensive or defensive line, Albert? As far as Gabe Davis is concerned, no, I would not. The Giants did have a visit with him earlier. He has also visited a few other teams. Clearly, he is not prepared either by his own volition or because teams are not necessarily satisfied with the rehab off of the leg injury that he had last year. So Gabe Davis is still out there. I do not believe he has signed with anybody. And I do think at some point, whether it's late in the summer during camp or during the preseason, even maybe after week 1 of the regular season, I'm sure somebody is going to sign him. At the moment, the Giants' wide receiver room is looking really good. I mean, let's just put it out there. Malik Neighbors is not taking snaps. So Hyatt has been the star of the offseason program as far as the wide receivers are concerned. Darius Slayton has had a really good spring. And then behind those two guys, everybody else in the wide receiver room has had a good spring. It's an impressive collection that the Giants have amassed. Now, are they big names? No. Are they getting big-time money? No. But between the guys on the back end of the depth chart and then the undrafted rookie free agents that they brought in, I mean, I was going to tell you in a little bit anyway, but why don't I just mention it now? Again, today, and this is crazy. Boy, this print is like, I wish I could show you the print on this roster. Can you guys see that? No, you can't, can you? Yeah, there you go. Look how tiny that is. The print on the roster is like 1/10 the size of the stock pages or the racing form. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But Cambry has, had a great day today. In fact, in the last week, he has really picked it up. And this was a guy who you probably never would have thought about. But today, let's see, what did he do? He caught a nice stab in the flat from Jameis Winston. Then he caught another nice stab in the flat from Jameis Winston. And then third snap in a row, he caught a touchdown pass from Jameis Winston. And that was in one of the 11-on-11 periods. And then in the final 11-on-11 period, Jackson Dart threw a fade to him in the right corner of the end zone. And Dart just looped that rainbow ball right into his hands for the score. So probably the best day that Cambry has had during the spring camp, although he's had a few other flashing days as well in the previous week or so. But that's my point. I mean, I'm looking at these wide receivers and I'm saying to myself, there's a lot of guys here who, at the very least, are going to be really good practice squad players as they try to fight for a spot on the 53. You know, I don't want to get off on a tangent about the receivers right now. I've done it in the past. I'll do it again if you guys really want to hear it about the wide receiver room. But the way I look at the depth chart in the wide receiver room, there's really no room for a guy like Dave Davis. There's just not. It's just the way I see it. Now, Albert, your other question was veteran linemen during camp. Let's see. Did you, no, you did not. Oh, there you go. O-line. He says O-line. He did come back and did qualify that as offensive line. I don't think so. Albert, I think what's going to happen is the Giants want to go to camp with the offensive linemen and the defensive linemen that they have. They're very happy with their defensive line depth for sure. They like their guys who are the projected starters, and they really like their depth. On the offensive line, they believe that they've accumulated enough of players. And here, let me just quickly run down the list very, very briefly for you of some of the candidates who they are going to use in this competition to try to find the best 5 offensive linemen and put them on the field opening day against Washington. Okay, Thomas will be the starting left tackle. We believe John Runyon will start at one guard. We believe that John Michael Schmitz will be the starting center. Okay. Jermaine Illuminor is going to be the starting right tackle. Those 4 spots, I believe, are solidified. I find it hard to believe that Thomas, Schmitz, or Illuminor could possibly be unseated from their slots. Do I think that Runyon could be? Well, he's coming back from a shoulder injury, hasn't done a lot during the spring drills. I don't know. Is there an aggravation there or something else going on? At this moment, we don't believe there's anything serious. But when he finally does get on the field at training camp, he's going to have to perform. Because the competition at guard, these are the guys who are fighting for the 2 starting guard spots on this team. John Runyon and Greg Van Roten, the 2 incumbents from last season. You also have Evan Neal, who is now starting to fight for a job at guard. He's not working at tackle anymore. He's now working at left guard and at right guard. Carmen Brasillo, the offensive line coach, says he has had a good camp this spring. He has embraced the move inside, and he is right smack in the middle of this competition. So it's Evan Neal, it's Jake Kubas, last year's undrafted rookie free agent who the coaches really like very, very much. It's Joshua Ezeudu, who's been around for a few years now. They love his athleticism. He is the wild card on the offensive line. They have worked him at every spot except center. Aaron Stinney, the veteran, former Tampa Bay Buck, won a Super Bowl and Lombardi Trophy with the Buccaneers, played a little bit for the Giants last year. He's certainly a quality depth piece, a veteran, reliable. He's in the mix. So Runyon, Van Roten, Stinney, Neal, Ezeudu, and Kubas. That's 6 guys. 6. 2 of those 6 are going to start. I don't think they'll keep all 6 of those guards. No, I don't see that happening. How many? 4? Let's see. But that's the competition that they have right now. I don't believe the Giants think that, first of all, they're tight against the cap. So they don't have an awful lot of money. Now, let me see something here. Of the remaining free agents, I want to say, let me see here. best free agents still available. If you wanted to go for a free agent and you wanted to put somebody else into this competition at guard, okay? Let's say that's what you wanted to do. Okay? I'm looking here at the free agents still available. And let's see here. Okay, it looks like well, Kevin Zeitler looks like he's still free. I don't think that's right. I don't think this list is right. Let me just look for another list here. I have a different one I can go to. And I know I'm taking a little extra time here, Albert, to answer your question, and I do apologize. But I do think it's important because you're asking a very legitimate question. I think the Giants have, in their mind, they've got enough of options and a quantity of players that they believe 2 of those 6 guys are going to step forward and win the starting jobs that are necessary to battle against Washington opening day. I believe they think that. Okay. Okay. Here's some of the names that are still available. John Feliciano, former Giant guard / center. Cody Whitehair, formerly of the Raiders. Dalton Reisner, who played with the Vikings this past year. Andrus Peat, who barely played last year with the Raiders. Hey, Shane Lemieux is available from the Saints if you wanted to go back there for a reboot. But that's about it for the left guard spot. If you want to look at the right guard spot, let's see. Brandon Scherf, who was, man, I couldn't wait to get my hands on him coming out of the draft when he originally joined the NFL. He's 34 years old now. I'm sure he's going to ask for a decent buck. So whether or not you think he can still play, you also have to worry about the situation and the money factor. So I don't think he's going to be coming here. Will Hernandez is an unrestricted free agent right now after playing with the Cardinals last season. He was only a part-time player. I think he did get hurt, but I'm not sure why he played only 25% of the snaps last season. Mark Lewinsky, after he was with the Giants, went back to the Colts. He's a free agent again. I don't think you're going to bring Mark Lewinsky back. So Connor McDermott, from the Rams, he's available. And that's about it. So the answer is no, Albert. I don't see the Giants bringing in any other offensive linemen, and I don't see them bringing in Gabe Davis at wide receiver either. Okay. Well, that takes care of that question and maybe some other comments and questions that may have been on tap as well. Tudo says, he's talking to one of our other people on the chat, James, saying, I have to renew my contract with the hospitals in demand for a bigger purse, mate. Not enough rooms for my victims. Tudo is a tough guy, man. He's Jersey tough. I get that he's with the Italian rugby team, but he's Jersey tough. And I love that. Mark B says, rooting hard for Hyatt. Let's see here. Mark B says, eye examination. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what that's regarding, except maybe the eyewitnesses who maybe don't understand what it is they're seeing, but that's certainly possible. Mark B says, wide receiver room, that's a good problem to have. James O'Keefe, yes. Free agent wide receiver from Notre Dame is having a good showing in OTAs. That would be Bo Collins. Yes. He has periodically flashed throughout the spring ever since he got here. I don't think it's enough to make the 53. No, I do not believe that. But is he an intriguing guy that you'd want to keep around? Yeah, I absolutely believe that. Yes, I do. James O'Keefe says offensive line has decent depth, it looks like. Finally, Albert 007 says, with current offensive line signed for 2025, except for Thomas, what would be your strategy for next year, especially with a rookie starting quarterback? Well, let me see this for a second. I have not kept track of the 2006 Giants contracts, to be frank with you. That's a little bit too far down the road for me right now at this moment, but I'll be very glad to look. And what do we have here? Okay, 2006, Andrew Thomas will still be signed. Again, this as long as everything stays equal and nothing changes. Andrew Thomas is signed for 2026. John Runyon is signed for 2026. Okay, let's see who else. Marcus Bowe, the rookie that they just drafted this season. He's been working out a lot at tackle for the moment. Also has guard flexibility. At least that's what we've been led to believe. But they're starting him at tackle. So Marcus Bowe is also signed for 2026. And that would be it. That's it. Right now, 3 of the Giants' offensive linemen would be signed for 2026. So you see, Albert, in a way, you've kind of helped round out the back end of your question about adding offensive line. One would think the Giants, I thought it was, certainly possible for them to draft an offensive lineman this year, and they did in Marcus Bowe out of Purdue. Next season, you got to figure they're going to draft 2, not just 1. They'll draft 2 offensive linemen next year for sure. See, because with so many of the linemen that they have under expiring contracts, that's going to clear the deck. See, sometimes it's actually good to have guys on expiring contracts because you don't have to be committed to them for the following season. And it's like, okay, we want to upgrade anyway, and we're free to upgrade because we're going to use their money to upgrade. If you've got guys who you aren't overly satisfied with and they've got more time left on their contracts, now it's a lot harder to upgrade because you're committed to those salaries. I hope that makes sense to you, Albert, but I think we all agree the Giants' offensive line still needs upgrades and will need more upgrades next year. This is actually, I'm glad you now alerted me to this, because now that I've seen it in black and white on my computer, the Giants only have 3 offensive linemen under contract for 2026. If they decide that they need a bunch of upgrades, and I think they'll for sure at least need some, they're going to have the flexibility to go out and get upgrades. That's actually a good position to be in. So Albert 007, thank you so much for prodding me in the side and making me take a look at that, because that's an aspect of the 2026 season that I have not even thought about yet. Mark B says, Paul is cooking, talking offensive line. Christine says she is worried about next year on the offensive line. Okay. Mark B says, me too, Christine. Unfortunately, every year. Albert 007 says, Nick Gates. Yeah, remember Nick Gates well, and always will be a favorite. A fan favorite, a media favorite, a locker room favorite. He was very, very well liked in the Giants organization all the way up to ownership. Mark B says Nick Gates in Philly, I believe. You know what? I'm not sure if he's still there. He may not have gone back. He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles as a backup, but you know what? I don't know. Yeah, Gates was released by the Eagles February 18th. So Gates is a free agent. He is out there. But no, I don't believe that the Giants are interested in re-signing him. But if he still does want to play, I hope he lands somewhere and can still fulfill his dreams. He's such a great guy and has overcome so much. I don't know anybody who would not root for Nick Gates. But right now, he is an unrestricted free agent and available to sign with anybody. Let's see here. Gary Gaston says, hey, Paulie Dots, I haven't seen any footage of Darius Alexander practicing. He is the third-round draft choice, the defensive tackle that the Giants picked up this season. Can you provide us with some insight about his status? Yeah, he's got some soreness. I don't specifically know the appendage that he's got, but he is working with the trainers on the side. He comes out. He is in spring practice gear and does work with the trainers. But you're right. He has not been practicing. He has only been on the side with the trainers. But I refer to what I said earlier in the program if you didn't hear it, and that is when a player gets to come out onto the practice field and he's got the gear on and he's able to do some stuff with the trainers, that means it's minor. That means it's not a big deal. Because if it was a big deal, they wouldn't allow him to come out. He would be inside getting treatment. He would not be coming out with the rest of the team, even if he's not going to participate in the team drills. Let's see who else we got. Albert 007 wants to know about JMS. Says, see, James O'Keefe knows me very well. This is one of the terms that I've coined over the years. I've got a whole dictionary full of terms, kind of like Dickie V, Dick Vitale does in college basketball. Yes, JMS, John Michael Schmitz, the Giants center, he is in a show-me year. He's a show-me player right now. You know, it's been kind of up and down, kind of inconsistent, kind of mixed results through the first 2 years of his career. You know, it is time. It is time for John Michael Schmitz to really break out and be the guy that the Giants believe he can be. Now, what's interesting to me here is that I guess when he came in, I'm looking for him contract-wise. Hold on a second. John Michael Schmitz. Let me just take a look at something here. Yeah. John Michael Schmitz is under contract for 2026, but yet, for some reason, the list I saw of free agency or of guys signed, he was not on the list. So I stand corrected because I'm looking at his personal bio sheet. He did sign a 4-year deal, 23, 24, 25, 26. So the list that I just looked at from Over the Cap earlier that indicated only 3 Giants offensive linemen are signed in 26, that's clearly inaccurate, and I should have caught that. You know, something was smelling fishy there, and I just couldn't sniff it out. John Michael Schmitz is. So Runyon, Bo, Thomas, and JMS are all signed under contracts for 2026. I almost don't even want to make a definitive statement now because I'm very leery after the list that Over the Cap was actually mistaken. And I really like those guys. I think they're very, very good. And that they're the first place to go to whenever you talk about contracts. Overthecap.com is the first place I look. But in any event, yes. So JMS is signed for 2026. He is, however, in a show-me year. James, I'm with you 100%. Jalen Hyatt is a show-me player. I need to see it. Show me why you can be the player the Giants thought they would be when they drafted you. To some degree, Kayvon Thibodeau is a show-me player. He's had 1 double-digit sack year so far. This is the 4th year of his career. He said today when talking to the media, he believes he's a double-digit sack guy. He did it once before, and he believes that that's what he is. He's refocused. He's extra determined. He's very intense. Said he looked at every one of his snaps last season and saw 4 or 5 times where he got half a sack where he should have finished the play and gotten the full sack and didn't. And then said he missed 4 or 5 tackles in the pocket that he should have had and let the guys get away. So he said this year he's got to make sure he finishes. Well, I agree. Show me. Show me. Finish. Get those double-digit sacks like you're supposed to. I agree. I have high expectations for him. I expect a lot out of him. He does of himself. Great. We're on the same page. Oh, let's see here. Christine says, Russell Wilson mentioned JMS in his presser today. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Russell Wilson is very quick to give praise to teammates on all sides of the ball. He's really become a great leader with the Giants in his very short time here. And we got somebody else with another star. Let's see here. Oh, my goodness, it's Mark B. Holy smokes. Look at this one, folks. Thanks a zillion times over, my friend. Mark B. Coming up with a super chat item. And so we are always appreciative when people want to show their generosity like that. That's awfully kind of you, Mark B. Thank you. Says you're the best in the biz, Paul. Appreciate your passion, information, and dedication. Hopefully I will run into you again in training camp. I will be there. I will be there. Once that schedule comes out, hopefully you'll be able to grab some of those free tickets. And yes, I'll be very glad to say hi. And, I really do enjoy talking to the fans at training camp. And I try to be as accessible as I possibly can. I mean, it's a fun time, because let's face it, in training camp, everybody's got some pretty good spirits. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of anticipation. I don't necessarily know that the crowd would be quite as friendly in November and December if the team isn't doing so well. Believe me, I can tell you they're not so friendly on Twitter. But the live crowds at training camp are always a pleasure. We do always invite you to come out to a Giants training camp and enjoy a beautiful day of football. So, Mark, once again, thank you so much. That is incredibly generous, and I really do appreciate your loyalty to the program and to my work. It's because of people like you that I so much enjoy doing what I do. Let's see what we can do here to come back and try to take care of some more of your questions. I'm never even going to get through this practice report if you guys keep it up, but that's okay because it's almost 9 o'clock. I said I would do at least an hour. We've got over 700 live viewers right now on the program. And this is a special night, right? Because it's day 1 of minicamp. It's a Tuesday night. We usually don't do a show on Tuesday night, but we've still got a pretty respectable number of live folks who want to tune into the program. So that's a really cool thing. Isaac Moore says, "Hi, Paul. Guys, what's new? Any good news?" Well, let me get back to some of these plays that we saw at practice today, and I think you'll enjoy that very well. Let's see here what we could do here to get back to that. Before we do that, Christine wants to know, how is Scatterbo looking? He's not signed, Christine. He's the only, excuse me. He is the only draft choice that is still unsigned. He's the 4th round pick, the running back out of Arizona State. For whatever the reason, he has not signed his contract yet. He is the only unsigned Giants draft choice. He is at the minicamp. He has been on the side with the trainers, so he's got a little something that he's trying to work out. That much I can tell you. But the truth is, he's there having signed an injury waiver. You see, the way this goes is that you cannot, as a player, go onto the field for the spring drills, the OTAs or the minicamp. You cannot participate unless you have a signed contract with the team or unless you sign an injury waiver that alleviates the team from all responsibility if you should get hurt while on the field. Now, because Scadaboo has been on the field, even though he's only working with the trainers, he's still out there. I'm sure what has happened is that he has signed the waiver. To my knowledge, he has not signed his contract yet, but I would expect that will be done by the time he gets to training camp, because I don't see any way that he's going to miss practice time when they return in late July. Okay. Christine says, have you seen this before on Scat not signed? No, I'm telling you, he's not. He's not. He's the only one not signed of the draft choices. But again, don't worry. Albert 007, do you think the G-Men will surpass the 5-win mark? Albert, I don't make any strong predictions about the record until I see the final roster. I do believe that the 90-man roster the Giants have right now is the most talented, deepest, and most balanced roster the Giants have had in a number of years. I believe that. I actually believe this team, I get it. Saquon Barkley was on the last playoff team in 2022. I know. Leonard Williams was on that team. Those were two dynamite players. But I do think there's more depth and there's more balance on the Giants 2025 team than even the 2022 team that went to the playoffs. Now, as you recall, that playoff team was 9-7-1 and then beat the Vikings and lost to the Eagles. So they really finished 10-8-1 if you include the postseason. 2 games over 500. I don't know what their record is going to be this year, especially with a difficult schedule. But what I do know, Albert, is that the 90-man roster they have now gives a lot of people around that building reason for optimism and reason for hope. But I'm not gonna give a season prediction, and I never do this until I see the 53 that they're going to go into games with. I need to see that 53, and then I'll be very glad to give you a number. But I'm not going to give you one right now. I think it's very reasonable to expect that they'll win more games than they did last season. I mean, that's just obvious. And even 5 is more than they won last year, right? Because they were 3-14. We know that. I don't even need to remind you, do I? Ja Soul says, waiting quietly on the sideline, waiting for the team to send Winston to New Orleans, laugh out loud. Well, here's the thing that I don't understand. Okay? The Giants are very happy with Jameis Winston. They love his intangibles. He spoke to the media today in person for the first time since he signed with the team. Winston has a lot of raw talent. He's been in the league for over a decade, and he's maddeningly inconsistent. That's all there is to it. He actually had a really good day today, but even on a great day today that he had, there were a few throws that just were not on the mark and missed by a lot. That's just the way he is. It's been that way his whole career. It's not going to change now. From all accounts, he's been a great teammate and a great asset to the club in every way. But when it comes to performance on the field, there is still that inherent inconsistency, which is why he was signed to be a backup. From the moment he signed those papers, from the moment that news came out that Winston was joining the Giants, it was clear he was brought here to be a backup. He was to be the second stringer. They were going to go out and get a starter. And Russell Wilson was that target. And they got him. So that's great. Now, Jameis Winston, and then here's the thing that boggles my mind, right? People talk about Winston and they say, well, they should send him to the Saints. Now, why do people say that? Oh, well, because he played for the Saints last time. Yeah, but here's the problem. Here's the problem. Who is the Saints' new head coach? Remember, they changed coaches after the season. Kellen Moore is the Saints' new head coach. Kellen Moore last year was in Philadelphia as the offensive coordinator. Why would Kellen Moore want Jameis Winston? He was not in New Orleans with Jameis Winston last year. He was not connected to Jameis Winston in any way, shape, or form. So why would he want him? People keep saying there's this connection to the Saints. Yeah, Winston played for the Saints for a different head coach. I keep telling people this. I don't know. Are people not listening? Kellen Moore was in Philadelphia last year. Who else was in Philadelphia last year? Kenny Pickett was in Philadelphia last year. Kenny Pickett was since traded to the Cleveland Browns, a Cleveland Browns team that has a glut at quarterback because they went out and drafted Sanders and they drafted Gabriel this past April. So if you really want to use common logic, and Kellen Moore wants another quarterback in New Orleans, chances are he's much more apt to ask the Cleveland Browns if they would part with Kenny Pickett and he could be reunited with the guy that he had in Philadelphia last year. That makes so much more sense than him picking up the phone and asking the Giants to send down Jameis Winston. Not that I think the Giants want to trade him, because I don't think that they do. But if they did, I don't see the fit. Okay. Christine says, excellent on the podium today. She's talking about Jameis Winston. And yes, he really does command the podium very well. He's got a very gregarious, outgoing, and engaging personality. He speaks very, very well. He catches your attention. And by all accounts, teammates and coaches, he's been a terrific teammate and a big help to the players in the locker room. Jal Soul says he's a creature of timing. He throws the spots, so it is a see it and rip. I understand, Ja. I understand. Look at his career touchdown to interception ratio. We all know the deal, right? We all know the deal. This is not something I need to explain to you folks. You want a minimum of 2-1, but you'd rather have, if you can get it, it's sweet, but a 3-1 touchdown to interception ratio, right? We all know that. That's what you really would love to have. 3-1 on the ratio. 2-1 is, you're good with that, but you really want 3-1. And there's a bunch of people who do that. Jameis Winston, and again, I repeat this, last year, 13 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Basically just a tad more than 1-1. For his career, 154 touchdowns and 111 interceptions. There's nothing about that ratio that would make a head coach feel comfortable. That's not a knock or a slam of disrespect against the quarterback. Those are pure numbers. Those are facts. That's why he was signed to be a backup. That's why the Giants did not sign him to be a starter this year. They signed him to be a backup. Because if you're going to sign a starter, you want a much better touchdown to interception ratio than what he has. That's all. It's not a knock on him. Again, they seem very happy to have him. They want him here. Okay. Josh Soul says, I remember talking to Coach Gene Clemens, and we both agreed he would probably beat both Russ in a real competition. I don't understand exactly who you're talking about. If you're talking about Russell Wilson, who is a very likely Hall of Famer, compared to Jameis Winston, I could not disagree with you more. It's not even close. Even at this stage of their careers, Russell Wilson, hands down, the starter, and it's not even close. So I'm sorry, Ja, but if you and Gene are going in that direction, you're on the wrong tree. Albert 007, if Saints gave us a third for Winston, since we will have limited picks next year. I don't know how many times I got to explain this. All right. Isaac Moore says the fans want him maybe. The Saints fans want him? I'm a little lost on some of these scattered messages that are coming in. Isaac Moore says, I heard you the last time. Yeah, right? Think about it. Kellen Moore, Kenny Pickett, they were both in Philadelphia last year. Christine says we need Winston for Dart's development. That is part of the plan. Yes, you can learn a lot from a guy like Jameis Winston, who has been in the league for more than a decade. Just like you can learn a lot from Russell Wilson, who's been in the league for more than a decade as well. Heck, everybody in that room's learning from Tommy DeVito because he's been in the Giants system now for 3 years. This is his 3rd year. And Wilson and Winston and Dart have all said they've learned stuff from Tommy DeVito. That's why the Giants have these 4 quarterbacks in the room right now. I don't know why it's so hard for people to understand. Isaac Moore says, we got Winston for the price of crab legs. We're keeping him. Isaac, I have no idea what the price is of crab legs because I don't eat them, have never gone shopping for them, and will not order them in a restaurant. So I'm sorry, but that comment goes way over my head. But I think I get your drift. Jasol, Christine, he's going to talk to her, but I'll take the comment anyway. If Russ, if who people say he is, he should be better quarterback for Dart's development. Well, again, the more experience you have in the room, the more you can learn. And sometimes you can learn a lot from listening to guys who have had struggles. Well, Jameis Winston struggled a heck of a lot more than Russell Wilson over his career. So yes, Jackson Dart can learn a lot from Jameis Winston. Let's see here. Josh Soul says the defense is looking nasty. That is true. That is something that Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston both talked about today when they were at the podium. Sneaky G-Man, I don't want to see Dart at all this season. And you're right. You're absolutely right. Best case scenario for the Giants is that Russell Wilson has a really good season. The Giants are competitive all the way down through Game 17, and Jackson Dart does not have to play. You are correct. That is the best case scenario. However, there are circumstances that could alter that scenario, and there are certainly possibilities that would see Dart get into some games this year. There are ways it could happen, including, quite frankly, while it may be remote, if the Giants are winning in a blowout in the last month of the year and the team thinks he's ready to actually take some real snaps, or if the Giants are on the other side and getting blown out and they think he's ready to take some snaps, he could see some time in relief in the fourth quarter of a game. That's not impossible. But Sneaky G-Man, all things being equal, best case scenario, you're right. Jackson Dart doesn't see the field this season. That doesn't mean it's bad if he does. It just means that circumstances changed and the dominoes lined up where it was appropriate for him to get in. That's all. Isaac says Eli was a 1.5 to 1 ratio. What are you're talking about? The picks, correct? I'm sure that's what he's talking about. Let me see what Eli's. Yes, 366 to 244. Yeah. No, you're right. Eli threw too many interceptions for the liking of when you bring in a quarterback. There's no question. When you're developing a quarterback, you got a young guy, because you got to remember something. Eli had some really tough years with some picks. And by the way, though, and I'm not going to name any names, but there was one year, where is it now? Is it 2010? I think it was. I'm going to do one quick check here into my database. And I want to just check on something. And this is where it gets a little shaky. I don't think it applies to Jameis Winston because he doesn't have the kind of track record over the long term that indicates an aberration. But with Eli Manning, there was one year, and I believe I got it right here in 2010. Let me just go down here and check it out. Oh, let's see. Is this the one? No, it was not this year. Hold on a second. It was one of the years where Eli threw over 20 interceptions. Shoot. Maybe it was 13. Hold on a second here. Let me take a look. 2013. Oh, let's see. And I'll get to my point in just a second. Okay. Eli in 2013. And again, when I talk about the 2-to-1 ratio, that's what you want on a young quarterback coming in, in his early development, or if he's been in the league a few years. With a guy like Eli, who had played as long as he did, there were bound to be ups and downs. You're not going to play 15 years in the NFL and not have had some real bad interception seasons, especially when you played with some poor teams and some poor receiving rooms. All right, there it is. Yeah, this is the year. 2013. 2013, Eli Manning threw 18 touchdown passes and 27 interceptions. He led the league in picks. Okay? That year, I grade all of the interceptions. I grade drop passes. That year, there was a receiver on the team who was responsible for 9 of Eli Manning's 27 interceptions. Why 9? Because he either ran the wrong route, went in when he was supposed to go out, and the ball was thrown right into a defender's hands, or he juggled the ball or tipped the ball, and it wound up getting intercepted by the other team. 9 of Eli's 27 interceptions that year were at the feet of one specific wide receiver by my film grading. Now, you take 9 away from that, it's still not good because now it's 18 to 18 instead of 18 to 27. So I'm not going to backtrack on the math there. 18 and 18 is still not good. All right, 1-to-1, you don't want that. You want better. But that's the kind of challenge and the kind of stuff that Eli Manning had to work through in a number of his seasons. And when you play as long as he did, there's going to be some mutation in those numbers. Now, this is one of the reasons why Russell Wilson is so special. Because Russell Wilson's touchdown to interception ratio is remarkably low. 350 touchdowns to 111 interceptions. Are you kidding me? It is more than 3-to-1. Incredible. And to be able to do it over a 13-year career as Russell Wilson has, you have to have great respect for a guy who has protected the ball as well as he has over his years. Now, of course, he has also had much better supporting cast members over the course of those years than Eli Manning had in many of his. Anyway, okay, let's see what we got here. Jasol says, he will learn how to avoid, I guess he's talking about Dart. He will learn how to avoid the middle of the field from Russ. Ha ha ha. Hey, Jax, to keep that TD to interception ratio down, moon balls and dump offs. Ignore everything else. All right, we got 10 more minutes left in the program. So let's see here. Sneaky Man says, okay, no, okay. Couple things here. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, Josh Soul. I just told you. Eli had 20. Eli led the league in interceptions, I think, 3 times. I get that. But by the way, he was also Super Bowl MVP twice. There are inconsistencies, and then there are blips on the radar. For Eli, there were blips on the radar. Okay. Let's see here. There's some funny items in the chat here, folks. I'm just going to let you read them yourselves when you look at the replay. Let's see here. Mark B. Paul, how does Abdul Carter's movement look up close? It's ridiculous. He is ultra fast, ultra quick, ultra smooth. Mark B says Carl Banks says he's different. Yes. It's almost like, Mark B, have you ever seen the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator movie? I believe in one of those Terminator movies, and I don't know which one it was, there was a liquid villain, I believe, in that movie. I think he morphed himself into a police officer, if I'm not getting this right, or if I am getting it right. And then when he wasn't a police officer, he morphed into a silver liquidy kind of form. I'm pretty sure. But anyway, that smoothness, that liquidity. Josh Soul says Terminator 2. There you go. Okay. All right, so that's it. So it was Terminator 2. Okay. That's what we're talking about. He has this fluidity, this liquidity, if that's a word. And if it's not, I'm making it up, just like Dickie V does in basketball. He's got that about him. Let's see. Mark B says, seems like Banks is impressed with the kid from Penn State. His tools, lean, spin, explosive, rush, etc. Yeah, Mark B, there's no question. That's what I don't get into when people say so-and-so had sacks in these practices, because you know what? Somebody I think wrote earlier today, one of the observers said that, Abdul Carter had 4 sacks in practice today. You know what? I could have had 4 sacks. There's no contact. The tight ends, the running backs, and the offensive linemen can't block. What is the point in keeping track of sacks? The reason that the head coach, Brian Dable, blows a play dead when he sees a defensive player come off the snap and get into the backfield, he blows it dead because he wants to simulate the amount of time that the play had to develop. If that had been a real sack, he blows the whistle to kill the play so everybody knows, okay, under real circumstances, if that was a real defender getting past our offensive line, that's the amount of time you would have had to make the play work. The whistle is nothing more than a function to let the players understand the timing of the play if it breaks down. To start talking about these defensive players getting sacks when the offensive line can't block them is hysterical. But yes, what you can see is the raw athleticism and the quickness at the hike of the ball. That you can see. That is very, very impressive on Abdul Carter's part. 100%. In a way, I'm glad I got that question. In a way, I'm not. Because to some degree, it just speaks to the ridiculous of some observations. James O'Keefe says, I'll take the Super Bowl every time. Of course you will. All right. Ja Soul says, I chuckle because Jameis' NFL comp coming out of college was Eli Manning. Ja, I don't remember that comparison. I certainly would not have compared him to Eli Manning. No way, no how, never. Whoever did, obviously they were wrong. Sneaky G-Man wrote a few minutes ago, Paul, good to see you. Great show. I appreciate that. Thanks for dropping by. I'll try to call in on Thursday. No show Thursday. No show Thursday. That's not the case. We will be back tomorrow night following day 2 of the minicamp. That closes it out. There will be no Big Blue Kickoff Live on Thursday. The office is closed. There will be no Big Blue Breakdown Live until the Giants reconvene during training camp sometime late in July. Just so we've got that all square. John Sewell says that nuke scene messed me up as a kid in Terminator 2. Yeah, I get it. Mark B says, that's Carter. Christine says, Carter looks so special, all about football. Okay. Let's see. We're just about done. Let's see. Ryan's Big Blue says hi. Christine says, love what I heard about Carter from his coach on the huddle. Yeah, I mean, we brought in guests to talk about Carter. We brought in Brandon Short, the former Giants linebacker, who's now on the board of trustees at Penn State. We brought him here on this program. Yeah, we had him for 15 or 20 minutes. He told you everything there was to know about Abdul Carter. He would know. He played linebacker just like Carter does. To me, that was like getting it from the horse's mouth. All right. Couple other items real quick before we close it out. In terms of other items today, really good highlight players. We saw an 11 on 11s. We saw Wilson to Bo Collins, who was able to hold on to a juggling pass for a touchdown. We saw Russell Wilson to Wan'Dale Robinson, who made a diving catch right along the goal line. We saw Jameis Winston to Bellinger in the left corner of the end zone through a touchdown on a tightrope where Bellinger had to raise his hands up and reach for it and plucked it right out of the air. Okay. We also, let's see, what else? 11 on 11s, we saw Russell Wilson with a fade into the left corner of the end zone. For you older folks or even you younger folks who have seen Willie Mays in baseball play center field and make that basket catch where he would just put his hands out right there in front of his stomach and the ball would settle in. Well, let me tell you something. That's what happens when Russell Wilson decides he's going to loop a pass to one of his receivers. He looped a pass from about the 30-yard line into the back left corner of the end zone for Theo Johnson, and it just, like a bird, flew right into his hands, right over his shoulder, right into his hands. It was like an artist's painting. It was so beautiful. That's what Russell Wilson does. He's impressing the living heck out of me every time I watch this guy practice. Winston to Cambry, one of the undrafted rookie receivers. Cambry makes a stab in the flat. I think I said to you guys earlier, he had made 3 catches in a row from Winston during one of the 11 on 11s. Then in the last 11 on 11s, Wilson hits Bellinger on the left sideline. Bellinger must have rumbled about 35 yards. Probably would have scored a touchdown on the play if it was a real game. Jackson Dart to Amir Smith-Marset, who made a nice stab of a play where he reached out and just plucked it right out of the air. And Jackson Dart also hitting Cambry late in practice, a right back corner of the end zone on a fade. Another Russell Wilson type throw where he just looped and lollipopped it in for the touchdown. So those were some of the highlighted plays. Art Green on defense had an interception of Russell Wilson today. Apparently the back judge, who I was screened out from, had thrown a flag, thought that Green had pushed off, and so they nullified what was the only interception of the day. Green obviously didn't hear the whistle or hear the referee yell out interference because he intercepted the ball in one end zone and proceeded to run 100 yards the other way for a pick six. I don't know if Art Green in his entire high school, college, or pro career has ever had a pick six. So when he got the opportunity to run one back today, he was going all the way to the end zone. And that's what he did. One other final defensive play today. There were a couple of pass deflections that were nice, but I thought the other really sweet defensive play, Chauncey Golston, the defensive end who the Giants signed from the Dallas Cowboys. He's just entering his prime now. I think it's the 3rd or 4th time in the last week and a half to 2 weeks we saw him from his defensive end position jump up and bat a ball into the air, and then he almost came up with the daily double as he dove and just missed catching his own batted ball for an interception. Chauncey Golston had 5 passes knocked down last year when he was with the Cowboys. So it's no fluke that he's been getting his hands on the football at the line of scrimmage during these spring drills. If he did it 5 times during the regular season last year, it means that what he's doing now at practice is something that he does. It's not an aberration. And I think it's going to be really exciting to watch this guy. Again, I see him more as a defensive end. I don't see him as a stand-up edge rusher. I see him as a defensive end. I believe that's what he's going to be for this team. But he's got a lot to offer. It's been very exciting so far. Ryan's Big Blue Pod just wants to say, just hopped on. Not so sure if you talked about it, but which undrafted free agent do you think has the best shot at making the roster? He is saying he assumes Bo Collins. I don't think Bo Collins makes the 53. I don't know if there's room for an undrafted rookie free agent to make this 53. I think you'll see a bunch of them on the practice squad, including Bo Collins. But I don't think any of them are going to make the 53. As we close up here, we got only a minute or two left because I really didn't want to go over 90 minutes tonight. As I just take a real quick look at the depth chart just to see if there's anybody else that just catches my fancy as I've been writing my notes down all during the course of the spring drills. No. I honestly don't think so. I don't think there'll be any undrafted rookie free agent on the Giants 53. On the Giants 53. I don't think so. I do think you'll see a bunch of them because I like the class they brought in. I think you'll see a bunch of them, especially at wide receiver on the practice squad. But I don't think you're going to see one on the 53. Mark B says, wow, you guys are going to make me go a little bit longer than I was hoping to go, huh? Because you're going to keep firing questions. I'll be back tomorrow night, folks. We could do this again tomorrow night. Mark B says, how is Banks and Trey Hawkins looking? Banks has certainly looked better. Seems to have more assertiveness, more awareness. You rarely finger him out there on the field allowing a catch. I think he's allowed maybe 2 big catches during the entire spring. He's actually, it's more positive by him that he hasn't been noticed. Kind of like what I said to you, the philosophy about these spring practices and the OTAs and the minicamp. When you notice something that's negative, that's really not too good, positive is par for the course. If you're not noticed, that can also be par for the course. Kind of like offensive linemen during the regular season, right? You don't want to notice them. Banks is in that category. You know, it's not like we've seen a bunch of passes completed and said, oh, Banks should have been on him. That's not happening. In fact, the quarterbacks are usually throwing away from Banks. James O'Keefe says, sneaky good free agent signing. Johnston, and we took him from the Cowboys. No, you mean Goldston. Yes, James O'Keefe corrects himself. Chauncey Goldston, yes. Mark B says, sorry. Thanks for answering all of our questions. I'm sure that's what he meant. Mark B, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm glad. Look, it's 37. We're 137 into the program. If you got a couple more folks, we're closing over 850 live viewers right now on the program. If you got a couple of more, I'll take you up until 45. I'll take you another 5 minutes or so. If you have a couple of more comments or a couple of more questions, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll fill you in on maybe another item or two that was said during the pressers today, because I don't want to cut it off on a weird number. We'll go 145 tonight, and then I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, same time, 8 o'clock Eastern time, right here on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. And, we'll do another hour tomorrow night, to kind of wrap up day 2 of minicamp and anything else you guys want to talk about. As far as a couple of final notes today, again, Winston, and Dable talked, so did Kayvon Thibodeau, and so did the Giants offensive coaches. Now, in terms of Shea Tierney, the Giants quarterback coach, he made it very clear that he and Brian Dable were very much involved in the game plan about how they were going to groom and bring quarterback Josh Allen along when he was a rookie with the Buffalo Bills. They have a plan in place to bring along Jackson Dart. But he said what you do is that you tweak it after every daily practice based on what you see during the practice. Now, to this point, Dart has done very well. He was a little inconsistent over the last week. I'd say early on, he was spectacular, continued to be that way for several weeks. This past week, beginning the end of last week into this week, he's missed a few throws. Okay? That's not to say he's been bad, but he's missed a few throws that, 2 or 3 weeks ago he would have made. So he's had a little bit of a rough spot, but not much to speak of. It's to be expected anyway. He's brand new. Come on, give the kid a break, right? So anyway, he also mentioned, did Shea Tierney, the quarterback's coach, that Mike Kafka was part of the staff that developed Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City when he was a rookie. And so it stands to reason that Jackson Dart is getting a combo input from things that Kafka learned in Kansas City and things that Dable and Tierney learned in Buffalo. So with all of these three coaches who have worked with two superstar quarterbacks, they got a pretty good handle on how to run through the regimen that's necessary to develop a superstar quarterback. And I think they've got things under control. I know that Dable himself told us today that Dart has done a sensational job of showing leadership skills and of absorbing all of the stuff that they're throwing at him, which is a great sign. He has been taking reps with some of the first-team players, the second-team players, and the third-team players. In fact, at today's practice session, it was Wilson, Winston, and Dart who took mostly all of the snaps. Tommy DeVito didn't see many snaps in today's practice session, hardly at all. It's the fewest I've seen him take, actually, in the practices that were open to the media. So not that that necessarily means anything. It's only, June 17th. But I thought I would pass that bit of information along to you. Something else that I thought was very interesting today in the press briefings that we got. In Russell Wilson's case, he specifically cited, and this tells you the kind of detail and focus that this guy has, even though he's almost 15 years in the league now. He was really peppered about Jalen Hyatt, because a lot of people understand Hyatt's had a great spring. And Wilson throws that deep ball as well as anybody in the league, still does. So Wilson has been mentioning Hyatt every single time he has a press availability. He seems to go out of his way to talk about him because Hyatt's really had a great spring. Well, today somebody said to Wilson, how do you know? You just got here. How do you know that Jalen Hyatt really has it in him to be a good NFL receiver? And without hesitation, and if you get a chance, go to the Giants website and take a look at Russell Wilson's press availability. He immediately, without hesitation, started citing specific plays from the first 2 years of Jalen Hyatt's career when he burned the defense. And here's Wilson giving details, citing those plays, because he's gone back and he has watched the tape. He is that involved and that focused and that determined to make Jalen Hyatt a dangerous weapon in the passing game. That's not something that was told to him. That's not something he picked out of thin air. He had recall of details about things that he saw on Jalen Hyatt's tape that he liked and was excited about. That said an awful lot about Russell Wilson to me, and it also says an awful lot about stuff about Jalen Hyatt that, just needs to be broken out. And maybe Russell Wilson is the guy who can actually unlock that. The Giants certainly hope so. Folks, that'll do it. Mark B says Russ is a film rat, and always a great show, and always great to have you, Mark B. Hopefully you'll join us again on the Big Blue Kickoff Live tomorrow. Look at this. We are at 897 live viewers right now. If I could only get that to 900 before I signed off, and I was just about to sign off, if I could get 3 more live viewers to get that kicker up to 900, I would stay on for another couple of minutes. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. Oh, what are you going to do? All right, folks. That'll do it for the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Thank you so much for joining us again. We'll be back tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, with another edition of terrific Giants talk here on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. I'm Paul Dottino. Good night, everybody.